my channel. It's Marco, and this is my 2023 TLX Type-S. And man, just standing here looking at it from the outside, it's such a gorgeous car. So I've had the car for, you could say, about a month now, and wanting to share my thoughts so far, a month in with the car. This thing is just, it's so different. When I speak in terms of the looks, it's so different. This thing is more different than your run-of-the-mill sedans and things of that nature. Just the front end, it just looks crazy. And it attracts so much attention. A lot of people have came up to me in this 1 month alone, stopping me, in traffic, or I'm at the gas station, like, is this the new Acura? And they're like, man, the car looks so good. And I agree with them. I mean, the front end looks very aggressive, almost exotic-like. And people have just gave me all kinds of compliments with this car. And funnily enough, on my first night driving it home, somebody actually tried to race me in it. So, and it wasn't the last time either. So it gets a lot of attention, especially from other people who say have Charger Scat Packs, they have Subaru WRXs and similar cars like that. They'll definitely try to race you. They want to, see what it can do and stuff. However, I've been adhering to the 500-mile braking period. Once I passed the 500-mile braking, then I kind of opened it up a little bit. It definitely is pretty fast for what it is. It's definitely pretty fast. I know there's other cars out there in the segment that are much faster. One that always comes to mind is the BMW M340i, especially the X-Drive. I test drove that before I even bought this, but it was something about this that I just couldn't let go. And someone who's owned 2 Acuras previous to this one, I just had to get the Type-S. It was something I've been wanting for at least about a year and a half now. And with markups and the shortages, I just couldn't pull it off just because of those 2 things alone. So when I was able to kind of snag this one, I jumped on it. And I'm not so much worried about it being the fastest thing. Honestly, I like it for what it is and what it can do. It's fast, but it ain't too fast. And where this car shines, and in this 1 month I've had it, I've been able to test that out, is the back roads. This all-wheel drive is crazy. Torque vectoring, and it kind of like driving on rails in the back roads. It just holds so much grip, and I think that's where I get most enjoyment with this Type-S, driving it. Not so much that it can take off from a standstill pretty fast, but it's that it's fun on the back roads. It's a car you can have spirited drives, and it's gonna be fun every time. So, moving on, I have the optioned on NSX wheels, and at first, when I was talking with my salesperson about it, I told him, I was like, I don't know if I really want the NSX wheels because they come on summer tires and whatnot. I was like, I'm pretty sure I prefer the multi-spoke wheels. However, this was the one that they had coming in that I could get my hands on the soonest for 2023. And I jumped on it. In retrospect, these wheels are much better. I love the NSX wheels. For one, they'll be easier to clean than the multi-spokes. And 2, the brake calipers show much better, so it definitely pops because the calipers can show more of the caliper rather, and it pops better. So in retrospect, I'm glad I have the NSX wheels. It definitely complements the car. And one of my favorite things about this car is the quad tip exhaust. Not so much the quad tip exhaust themselves. I mean, it definitely makes the car stand out, but I love the fact that it's active, and every time I change drive modes, I can make it quiet, go in sport mode. It opens up the valves a bit. If I do Sport Plus, it opens them up all the way. It gives me a really nice, aggressive V6 growl. Like, I really love that. That's my favorite part about this car. One of my favorite parts about this Type S is the active exhaust, and it's just marvelous. Right now, I'm trying to figure out what kind of product I can use to keep the tips polished and keep them kind of like nice and chrome looking. Well, I think these are aluminum tips, not sure, but I definitely want to get a chemical or find something that I can use to keep these nice and polished. I've seen others, and if you don't keep up with keeping them clean, they do get dirty fast. That actually moves me back to the wheels, actually. So it was brought to my attention that, because this is my first car that actually has Brembo brakes, and the 4-piston Brembo brakes, the pads create a lot of brake dust fast. So it's important that I keep the wheels clean, because the brake dust builds up on it fast and makes the wheels look really dirty. So I got something for that, so I'm definitely gonna try to stay on top of that to make sure I keep the wheels looking nice and clean, you know, fighting the brake dust rather. So moving into the interior, this interior is real clean. I know a lot of people give Acura a little bit of controversy over not having a touchscreen like the last generation TLX, but I think it's okay. Would I have liked the touchscreen? Sure, but the touchpad is pretty easy to get once you get used to it. It took me about a week of using it to kind of like get into it and kind of get used to how the true touch interface works. And once I figured that out and kind of got used to it and the quick swipes and stuff, it was pretty easy to navigate through the infotainment screen. Coming from my 2019 TLX, the interior is radically different. I feel as though it's much better. The seats are much more comfortable. Not all the backroom space, as you will see with most reviews, but I don't really have people that ride with me a lot. It's usually just me, myself, and I, so that really didn't make any difference to me about the rear leg room and the back seat space. Other than that, I really love the interior. It's Type S logos everywhere. One thing I do love is the ambient light compared to my 2019 A-Spec. My 2019 A-Spec had ambient light, but it wasn't as vibrant as this one. This one is much more vibrant, and when I change drive modes, it changes with it, and I think that's pretty cool. And the gauge cluster is pretty dope. Before I had bought the car and was just researching it, I was debating about just waiting it out to see if Acura was going to give the TLX a digital gauge cluster and perhaps the refresh. However, I think now that the analog gauge cluster is pretty cool. It's not a bad gauge cluster. It's not fully digital. You only get the digital center display, but I think it's a pretty cool gauge cluster. It's really nice, and again, it is an ode to the TLX Type-S, so it's not a bad place. I just think that maybe Acura could have gave buyers the option to upgrade to a digital gauge cluster in their TLX for, you know, say an extra $1,000 or so, just to have that option there if someone wanted a fully digital gauge cluster, or, you know, an analog gauge cluster like this. But it's pretty cool cluster, and as you can see, I've put about 2,400 miles and some change on my Type S already in only about a month, so that lets you know I really do enjoy driving this car. It is really a joy to drive. Now, when it comes to fuel mileage and miles to the gallon, this car is going in. I knew I wasn't getting this car for the best miles to the gallon for fuel. It definitely is a fuel sipper, especially when you're in sport mode or sport plus mode. It'll sip through that gas. One of my nitpicks with this car was the fact that coming from my 2019 TLX A-Spec, which was also all-wheel drive, it had a 17.2 gallon gas tank. This one has a 15.9. Don't really understand how we went from a bigger gas tank to a slightly smaller gas tank, but I definitely kind of nitpicked that. However, it was something that I could live with. Hence, I got the Type-S. But gas mileage isn't bad, but it's not going to be the best. Right now, it's saying that I average 15.8. However, it's definitely more. One thing to keep in mind is my commute to work isn't really that far either, so that's probably why it's showing that average. But I get really good gas mileage on the highway. Can get up into the high 20s if I'm driving conservatively and not trying to race down the highway. City ain't that bad. It's not good, but it ain't that bad. So gas mileage is, it's so-so, but no one's buying a Type-S for gas mileage, so there you go. My conclusion, this is one of the best cars I've owned, and I really love driving this car every day. Just mundane tasks, as it is my daily car, but even mundane tasks like going to the grocery store or, just running somewhere to a store, to a department store or something like that. It's just fun. It's fun to do it in this car. Going to work in this car is fun. It's just a really fun car. It looks good, it drives good. If you're someone who don't really care about speed, you want something that's, a nice street performer, but you ain't trying to be the fastest person from light to light. This is the perfect car. You can't go wrong with a Type-S. It looks good, and it has enough performance for daily driving. So that's my thoughts and my experience so far, 1 month in with the Type-S, and I can't wait to spend many more months and years with this car. All right, peace out.